How's that looking? Everything look okay?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep,
And you
looks
can
good.
hear me all right? Very good.
Yeah.
So welcome back, everyone. Last week, the title of our training session was called Getting to Know MaxiFi, and we emphasized the input side of things. We spent most of our time looking at entering your data and kind of took a quick look at reading reports and what to think about when you read the reports. Today, the title of this training session is called Putting MaxiFi to Work. I want to look at using Roth 401k. I believe that Yale provides an option for people to make their employee contributions either in a traditional tax-deferred account or in a Roth account. So I'll show you how to examine that. I also have imagined a phased retirement scenario. It may not be exactly like the one that you're able to use, but the point will be that you'll be able to see how to set up any phased retirement plan you want. So that's kind of a preview of where we're going, and I guess we'll jump right in with a kind of very quick 1 or 2 minute review of looking at the base report that we built last week. So when you sign into MaxiFi, once you've got the account created, you'll see a screen like this. And I want to call attention to these menu items here at the top. I guess maybe because they're part of that blue strap up there and your eye is focused down here in the middle of the page, it's easy to overlook these. When you click on base profile like that, that's how you come to your input screens. This is where we spent all of our time last week. And you can toggle through these like I'm doing here at the left, and notice that some of them expand. So we have special receipts and special expenses. Our settings and assumptions has these menu tabs across the top. So I want to make sure that you see those because we'll be using those. But essentially you have these three main menu items at the top. When you go to reports, that's where you go to run a base plan report here at the left. If you've recently run a plan like I have, you may see this little link, view report, and it's not going to generate fresh data, but it'll just bring up a copy of the last report that you ran. So you've got your family here at the left, which shows you this broad screen. You can get to return to base plan down here, or you can click base profile up here, or you can click this little down arrow and see this pop-up tab and get to any of the alternate profiles you've created. So don't be afraid to kind of click around and learn to get comfortable with those tabs. And don't forget about the help button in the bottom right. If you open up contact us and fill in the subject and description and send that, it will create a support ticket that goes directly to me and I'll respond. So I'm going to click on reports at the top and just run a quick report to remind you what we were looking at last week. I'm probably the only one that remembers what the discretionary spending is, but it's 97,003, which is right here. So what I pointed out last week is kind of this is where we go to first, especially when we're first starting our building our plan, because we want to see what our annual discretionary spending number is. This is the amount that we're using to evaluate one plan against another. This is the sort of concrete way that we judge whether one plan is better than another. And so the first question we always want to make sure we're really comfortable with is explaining to ourselves what that $97,003 means. And the way I like to do that is jump right down here to the spending overview. And there it is again, $97,003, and remind myself that it is what's left over after these items: housing, Medicare Part B, our contributions to retirement, our federal, state, and FICA taxes, and any special expenses that we might have entered, like an expensive wedding or a car or you know, some exotic vacation or anything that we enter as a special expense will by that fact become part of fixed expenses. So you might remember I said that if we took a marker and put a bracket over these columns here, the ones that I've highlighted, we would label those fixed expenses. So discretionary spending plus fixed spending equals total spending for the year. And finally, when we go to this balance sheet, we see that our total income minus our total spending plus or minus our saving will always equal 0 for the year. So in this case, we have 199,000 of income and only 168 of spending. So that means we have $31,198 of extra income. I guess you could think of it that way, that we're going to save. So that 31,000 does not come out of our total spending. It's just money that we didn't spend, and we're going to be glad we did save it, because when we get down here to 2026, we have 117 of income, but we have 140 of spending. Uh-oh, how can we have more spending than we have income? The answer to that is we dissave, we withdraw from our saving. And so again, 117 minus the 140 plus the 22,859 is going to equal 0. These will always equal 0. And this pattern of saving here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row, then a pattern of withdrawals for the rest of our life will zero out our regular assets by the final year of our plan at age 100. And every time we change even the smallest thing in our plan, this pattern of saving and dissaving is going to change. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at building alternative profiles and learning how to put MaxiFi to work by helping us make decisions. So let's start with an easy one, and it'll kind of leverage some of the stuff I tried to emphasize last week about using that retirement variable. So when I'm in a report here and I want to get back to my inputs, I just go up here at the top, see me up there. I'm going to click base profile, and it's going to take me right back to these inputs. Okay, so I don't want to just keep changing my base profile and running it again. One, I'd have to remember the 97003. It'd be hard to compare. What I want to do is create a what if scenario, an alternate profile. So I click this little down triangle. There's a couple ways to do this. This is the way I always do it. It brings open this panel, and I'm going to add, see right here, add new alternative profile. And I'm going to call this retire 2 years early. And it is important to try to create meaningful names for these, because once you get a half a dozen of these, I've seen people with 30 of these. I don't know how they keep track of what they've done, but you know, I try to keep them minimal. I try to delete them once I'm done looking at them. I'm going to add the profile. Okay, right now, I just have a clone of my base plan. There's nothing flagged over here at the left indicating that I've changed anything. If I were to run this report against the base plan, it would be exactly the same. But what I'm going to do is come into Jack, into his name right here. I can select his name, and I'm going to come up here to change retirement age, and I'm going to change that to 63. And then I'm going to go to Sadie, and I'm going to change her retirement age from 64 to 62. So that's a variable that's used in 2 places. One, in earnings. So if I hit the preview, notice that it stopped his earnings at the retirement age. See, when I entered it, I said from 21 to retirement. So when I changed the retirement variable here, it changed it here. And the same thing for Sadie. She was at 64, now she's 62. The other place it changed it is in Jack's retirement accounts. I had his contributions continued to, quote, retirement, to that variable. So now the as we would want, the retirement contributions stop when he retired. He doesn't keep contributing after he quit the job. So same thing for Jack and Sadie. So that's the only thing that's different. I just changed that variable Took me 10 times as long to talk about it as it did to do it, but that's all there is to it. So now I'm going to click on, notice I'm in the retire 2-year profile right up here. Now I'm going to click on reports, and it's going to prompt me. It knows I'm in an alternative profile, so it says, which of the 2 other profiles that are in your plan do you want to compare it to? And most often I want to compare it to the base profile, and you will see some examples today of where I want to compare it to another alternative profile, but I want to compare it to the base. So this is simply the same report, and the only thing I'm changing is the age. We're retiring 2 years early, and we want to see what difference. You might remember our benchmark is $97,003, and that is the blue one. There you see it there, 97,003. And to retire 2 years early means the discretionary spending drops from 97 down to 90. I hope that screen isn't too small. It's a $6,676 lower annual, safe annual discretionary spending allowance. Now, you know, this is always context driven. If I have added up my discretionary spending for the last 2 or 3 years and I routinely buying everything I want, spend 77,000, I don't know, maybe that 97 to 90 is not that big a drop. But if I'm living right up on that margin of 90, 97, I might think, oh, I don't think I could really afford that, or that looks risky to me. Let's explore just real quickly some of these, what happens up here once you create it. This over here is a lifetime, is a present value number, and this is just a regular annual number. But I can pull up, see, I actually have 2 plans here. I have the base plan, so I could go to the income report. There's me working, or Jack working all the way to 65, and Sadie working to 64. And I could pull up the retire 2 years early and go to that same report and see it here. So I do that a lot, where I open each plan in turn, this one and this one, and then I navigate on the right over to the same report so that I can simply toggle between one and the other. Again, I'm kind of spatial enough and in my learning and the way I understand things that it's helpful to me to just see, okay, yeah, there are those numbers going down, and watch the retirement withdrawals too. Remember, we're contributing less when we retire early. So they go from 18 and 23 to 17 and 22. And of course, everything changes in the model. We could come here to the compare thing, the compare selector, and we could compare. I mean, you can compare them side by side in the report, just like I was doing a minute ago, or we could come here and compare. So there's our discretionary. We went from 97 down to 90, and that's what it means to retire 2 years early. We could also see, well, the chart doesn't help me there. I want to look at the table. So there's my table view of Jack's labor, just like we'd expect. Sadie's labor, there it is. What about Social Security? I wonder if those final couple of years of working had any impact on the Social Security. I know it has something to do with the best 35 years of indexed earnings and so forth, but let's just cut through that and see, what did MaxiFi calculate? I'm going to scroll up a little bit. We didn't delay anything. We're still taking Social Security at the full retirement age, but let's ignore the first year since that's 11 months. I think they're born in February. So let's jump down to the second year. In the base plan, where he keeps working, it's 35,265. But if he retires 2 years early, it goes to 34,898. And Sadie's are a little bit different also, from 36.5 to 36.2. So a little bit of difference there. And, you know, we can look at taxes, you know, are going to be a little different. Look at this. That's kind of interesting. There's no taxes in year 25 and 26. So, you know, if I got curious about that, I could go over to the retire 2 years early plan and look at the income overview in the year 25 and 26 here. And I can see, yeah, they actually have negative income in 25 because of that real return on regular assets is negative, and only 17,000 from Jack's retirement account here. So they don't pay any taxes at all that year. No FICA, no federal, no state. I can verify that here. And then taxes jump back up again. So that's kind of how we navigate around. I'm not going to spend much time on the download. You can download a PDF of this or an Excel version of this, but I rarely do that because I'm always changing them so much. I would just clutter up my download folder with a bunch of PDFs that don't mean anything to me, especially when I'm learning. So that's our retire 2 years early. And if I'm not going to jot this down, but I'm going to try to make a mental note of that. I dropped from 97 down to 90. Now I want to do another one. I got to go back to my base plan because that's the one I want to clone. And I'm going to make a new alternate profile and call this retire too late, and just run the same thing. I won't spend as much time on this, but I just want to show you, how quickly this can be done. So you already know what's happening. It's changing my earnings. Now we're really working a long time, and our contributions correspond to that. So we're going to compare that to the base profile. And I remember the base is 97,003. So our intuition tells us that working 2 years longer is going to raise our annual living standard, and it does. It goes from 97,003 to 102,529, a difference of $5,526. And in today's dollars, adjusted for inflation, every year of our life for the rest of our life. And if you want to think about it another way, you could say it added $239,000, $239,632 of present value to our lifetime economy. And that 239 translates practically into this 5,526 annual. So here, I'm kind of curious about those Social Security numbers. So here we went from 35,265 to 35,620. Again, a little more Social Security, probably difference in taxes. And this is where we can begin using our lifetime balance sheet to kind of toggle from one to the other and see where our efficiencies or inefficiencies are coming from. And we'll kind of come back and take another look at this. Now, if you are thinking, and I guess I want to say MaxiFi doesn't do all your thinking for you, you might think, well, wait a minute, on that, if I could go back to 2 years early and view that report. Here's the 2 year early report, and here I am in income. He's only 63 here, and he's got it. His birthday is in February, so let's ignore January for the sake of ease. He needs some health insurance for 2024, and Sadie needs health insurance for 25 and 26 to get both of them to age 65 at least, where they can do Part B. And even when they're on Part B, a lot of people, most people, I suppose, want to buy a supplemental plan also. But let's just look for now at that, buying that health insurance. Maybe Yale isn't going to keep insuring them after they quit, so they need to buy something, a COBRA plan, or go on in the market, the healthcare.gov, the ACA market, and get something. So what we'll do here is I'm going to go back to retire 2 years early, and I'm going to go down to household, and I'm going to go to special expenses. I'm going to add a special expense. Now I could add one for him and one for her. I could separate them out, and maybe if I wasn't trying to be brisk, move quickly here, I might do that, but I'm just going to lump them together. So health insurance, and I didn't know what to put. I'm just going to put 12,000 a year, and that's going to be for 24 for him, but 25 and 26 for her. So I need my little preview button to, I'll hit the check mark, I guess, but I'm going to preview that to make sure I've done that right. So 24, that'll cover him. Then he goes on Medicare B, and then 25 and 26 will cover her. And then she goes on Medicare B. Now, obviously, I could enter another special expense for their supplemental plan afterward, after they turn 65. And if I don't do that, then I need to remember that payment of that supplemental plan has got to come out of discretionary. So most people would put that supplemental plan as a special expense so that it appears as part of fixed. So here I am 2 years early. I'm going to go, oh, it's telling me I didn't save that. There we go. Now I'm going to hit reports, and I want to compare it. Again, I can compare it to the base profile. I think I was in the low 90s a minute ago. So we'll see how much lower. My intuition tells me it's going to go lower. That's pretty easy to intuit, I guess. We're going to spend more. Yeah, so it was 90, and now it's 89.5. But when I go up here, and I remember I can view these as independent plans as if I want. So I go to the retire 2 year early, and I go over here to the spending. There's my 12,000 for each of these 3 years for that silver plan or whatever they got, whatever you can get, for in the marketplace. And then again, the kind of magic of this program is that they don't tighten their belts for 24, 25, and 26 because they're paying 12,000 a year. The MaxiFi is already on top of that, and it's cascaded the consequences of those 3 years of expenses across the whole life of the plan. So this is the value of calculating, I guess, what we call endogenous spending levels. So this is what it means, and it's probably a little easier to understand to say it's 89,560 because we've accounted for the cost of the health insurance there. Let's see. The next thing I want to look at, I'm back to 2 years early, and I want to do one more thing regarding that. Maybe, now let me view that one more time, sorry. Okay, so here I am at 89,560. I like that orange line. I'm committed. I really want to get retired 2 years early, but I'd like to get this money, this line higher up. And I suddenly think, as I'm falling asleep last night, that I've got that darn vacation home that we haven't visited in years, and nobody likes it. So, or whatever, we just decide we're going to sell that. So I could go ahead and create an alternate profile on that. And I kind of want to show you another way to create an alternate profile. Instead of using the pull down here and adding a new one, I can start by duplicating this one. Duplicate retire 2 year early profile. Okay, it's saying, what do you want to call this duplicate? I'm going to say sell V for sell vacation home. So now it's a perfect duplicate of retire 2 year early. And now I need to go into my housing and real estate area, find the vacation home, and figure out a way to sell this $380,000 vacation home. My settings and assumptions are going to assume that there's a 6% commission, something I can adjust in settings and assumptions other. But I'm going to modify this. And how do I sell it? Well, I go to housing change. This is so easy. Pick a year I want to sell it. Say I want to sell at the end of 2022. All I do is just use neither. If I was going to buy something different, I would click own, or if I was going to start to rent a new vacation home, I would click rent. But when I click neither, it effectively just sells that. So now I have the retire 2 year early, but sell the vacation home. So I want to know how much that improved my living standard. Remember, I dipped just below 90. I was at 89 or something, and I started in my base plan at 97. So I'm going to run this against the base plan and see how much it helps me to get rid of that vacation home. And it helps me bring that almost back up to where I was with not retiring early. Remember, the orange line is retiring 2 years early and paying for $12,000 a year for 3 years. The blue line is just working, is my base plan, working to whatever it was, 65 and 64. So the difference is $762 a year, whatever that is. You could divide that by 12 to get a monthly impact on my discretionary spending. It's not nothing, but it's not a significant difference to go from 97,000 down to 96,241, as long as I'm willing to sell that vacation home. What happened is when I go to, where would that be? Housing, I guess that shows up in spending. I go to housing, I'm going to see my 357,200 here, which is the net purchase of the $380,000 vacation home. Remember, there's a 6% sales commission on that, so 380,000 minus 6% is 357,200, and it's a negative purchase, so you got to kind of get used to looking at a negative in this context, meaning a gain. And indeed, when I look at my annual saving and withdrawal report, I see it's got me saving a bunch of extra money in 2022. I didn't go out and spend it all. I saved it, and it's spread throughout my lifetime in this way. So that's selling the vacation home and retiring 2 years early, bringing us back to nearly an equivalent plan of not retiring 2 years early. Now, selling vacation home isn't the only way to do this, I guess. We haven't maximized our Social Security yet. That would help a lot, and there's some other things to do. So let's go ahead and take a look now at postponing or delaying our Social Security to earn these delayed retirement credits. We're going to, as Larry likes to say, take Uncle Sam's best offer. Normally what I would do is I would run a maximized plan. I kind of want to save that to next week to walk through this stuff so that I don't have to hurry through it. I want to explain what this is all about, and I want to explain what these other toggles are about. So this is real easy for me to set up manually, and it's good to know how to do this. So I'm going to hit the little drop down here and add a new alt profile. I'm going to call this Social Security at 70. Add the profile. Okay, again, I start with a perfect clone of my base, and I go into Household Social Security Strategy. Now, I guess I have the advantage of knowing where all this stuff's hidden, and you all, if you're not familiar with the program, might have to poke around a little bit, but there's not that many options, and you'll eventually find it. The Social Security strategies here. And so here I am setting up a what if I postpone Social Security to 70. So I'm going to modify the plan here. And I can see the dates up here. For Jack, it's January 2030, and for Sadie, it's January 2032. So we'll simply change his date to 2030. That means I have to change his spousal to 2032, her to 2032, and 1/2032. Now I made that look real easy. When you do it, unless you pretty got all these crazy rules about deeming and all this stuff in your head, you might do something like this and get this dreaded little yellow box. But don't be intimidated by that, and don't be worried about that. The answer, this is just saying you've entered some dates that aren't really allowed. So that's good that MaxiFi is not going to let you enter bogus dates. And if you just calmly read it, it'll make sense. And all it's telling me is to change this to 2032. And you know what? If you can't figure that out or you get frustrated, you always got this little green help button in the bottom right. Go to contact us, send a note to Dan. He'll pull a copy of your report if he needs to, and show you what, maybe even send you a screenshot of what to enter. So it's nothing to worry about. Here we have now using the full, what am I trying to say? My latest retirement date, age 70. And that's the only thing I changed in this plan.
So Dan, I think you made a copy from the plan where you sold the house. Sold the vacation. I think you did.
Let me look. No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. I messed up. Sorry.
But
Okay.
thanks. Yeah, it's easy to make those kind of mistakes, especially when
Dan, it's Barbara. I just have a quick question. It looked to me like on Sadie's side, where it said spousal, should that be 2030 because that refers back to Jack or not?
No, because if we tried to do that to 2030, we'd get this. If you file for
spousal, so just a misunderstanding. Okay, yeah. I just thought.
Yeah. No, we got this right. But yeah, there's all these little rules, and again, we're trying to offer guidance or feedback as you enter to help you get those right. But frankly, and that's another advantage of our maximization report. You don't have to start guessing at what to do. You just run the maximization report, and it's going to automatically set those. It's going to run through the hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands, whatever it is, possible dates for every single month, every single legitimate month and combination of months, and going to show you the optimal, the one with the highest lifetime present value. So here we are, and I'm just going to run this now against the base report. So we're back to working all the way, and the only thing we changed is Social Security delayed. And it added almost $350,000 in present value to the lifetime economy of Jack and Sadie. And that translates in this case to an advantage of, remember our blue is 97,003. That went to 103,354, and then this little hiccup right here, this little choke point, we're going to talk about cash constraint in a moment. And after they turn 70, it goes up to 105,604. So it's a difference of 8,600 out here and a difference of 6,500 here. But in both cases, it's more money. They didn't take any risk to get this. So it's hard for me to make a case for the blue line at this point, because it's hard to walk away from $350,000 that you didn't do anything to earn other than make a different decision about when you file a little bit of paperwork. So, I mean, there's maybe some institutional risk or something for the young, but this is almost a no-brainer here, I think. So here we have this. Let's look and see how much their Social Security changed. I could go in here to the income overview, Social Security report, but let's just use the compare. So Jack went from 32,265 to 43. So a little over, what is that, 11,000 or something like that. And then Sadie went from 36,500 to 45.
Yeah, and let me just emphasize, all these numbers you're seeing are in today's dollars, so they're all adjusted for inflation.
Yes, good point. Yeah, these are all today's dollars. If we were time traveling, we'd see bigger numbers, but we don't want you to have to. You're not a savant. You can't convert future nominal to today's dollars. So these have the same purchasing power as to what 36,590 buys you today. So that's what's happened. And one of the reasons I showed you this is I want to talk a little bit about this cash constraint and a little bit about what that means. If we go to Social Security at 70 and we look at our annual saving, you see that they ran out of money here of regular assets. It used everything. They started with 233, and they used everything they had to smooth it, and then started over with a new level. So the issue with cash constraint is really about, let me get to back to our chart, is really about learning how to borrow money from this period, call this the post-70 period or the far term, and bringing it into the near term. Or sometimes you have money trapped in a vacation home. So I could go here to Social Security at 70. Instead of creating an alt plan, I'll just do it right here in this plan. And I'll sell that vacation home in 2022 and see if that extra money solves my problem. Not everybody's got a vacation home or a piece of property or something out there worth $380,000 they can sell. So now we have 624,000 added. Now, not all of that is Social Security optimization. Some of that is the vacation home we sold. But definitely we got rid of the hiccup. We got rid of the stair step that was there. And so now they've gone from 97,003 to 111. And they're still working the same amount of time. But you can start to imagine the many possibilities. They can say, wow, if I have that much extra cushion, again, we're only spending around 77 or maybe 85 at the most. What if now I can go back and start looking at retire early again, maybe, and or some other things like phased retirement. Before I jump to phased retirement, I want to do one more thing. I'm going to go back here to the base plan. I want to talk about these options for our 401k, our 401 Roth. So, do they call it a 401k Roth? I guess they do. So we're going to.
Dan, we have a Roth 403b after-tax option in our 403b plan.
So I could edit that. I forgot. We call these 403b. But you know what I mean. So we have that. What we name it isn't so important, but we just have to remember what we're doing here. So I'm going to go in right now. This is a clone of the base plan. I'm going to go into the retirement accounts, and I see that my employee contributions, maybe I'm not even maxing those out. We'll talk about that later if we have time. But I have 6,000 of employee contributions going into the traditional 403b, not the 403 Roth. And the thinking there, of course, is that we're deferring our taxes to a period in our life where we have in a lower tax bracket. But let's test that theory. Maybe that conventional wisdom doesn't apply to everybody. I'm not trying to create a new rule of thumb. I'm trying to say it's worth testing these hypotheses. So I'm going to remove the employee contributions and save that. And then I'm going to add a Roth account. And I have to click Roth here. I'm going to put 0 assets in it and add my contribution of $6,000. I think I'm in Jack, yeah, to retirement and save that. So I just moved the contributions from this qualified plan, you know, with the tax deferral to paying my taxes up front and getting it tax-free on the receiving end. And I need to do the same for Sadie. So I modify her plan. I'm going to start by deleting her 7,000 and saving that. And then I'm going to add a Roth account for her. Start with 0 assets. I made the mistake the other day of putting the 7,000 here. And I scratched my head for 10 minutes before I figured out, oh, we got to put the 7,000 as contributions. Okay, so we saved that. So all I did is just point those contributions to a different kind of account. Now, one of the things I think is kind of fun to do, and I think it's helpful for your learning, is to try to try to develop an intuition of what's going to happen, based on a theory, or maybe it's just a vague intuition. Do we think that this is going to raise their discretionary spending, or do we think it's going to lower their discretionary spending? We're going to find out, because we can run a test, and I'm just going to run this right against the base, where the only change is where we pointed those $6,000 and $7,000 of contributions. And remember, they don't have a lot of years left to contribute. So whatever impact this has might be, might not be. Again, you got to test it, but this is what they have left. And it turns out there actually is a $12,299 lifetime advantage to switching that. And that translates to $283 a year. It's not a game changer. I don't, maybe you people that know a lot more about this stuff than I do would know if there's any other risk involved, but I'm assuming, for example, that we can invest in the same asset positions, allocate the same way. I'm assuming everything's the same. The only difference is the taxation.
But let me just point out that some of what might be going on here, you might think that this conversion would be being done putting money into a Roth at this point would be a bad thing because they're still working and in a high tax bracket. But it, when they take the money out later on, because they put the money in the Roth now, that may reduce their Social Security benefit taxation, and it may also reduce their IRMA, which is the high Medicare Part B premium. All this stuff is fully being calculated. When this thing runs in like a half a second, it's beyond brilliant. It's really figuring out all this stuff simultaneously, iteratively, so that everything's internally consistent. Because in that half a second, there's potentially 1,000 back and forth iterations between three programs to make sure everything's lined up correctly. So, but that sometimes you'll see things like that. I would say, as a tax guy, gee, what's going on there? That doesn't make sense. But I've come to learn from looking at cases like this that you can't leave out the Social Security tax aspects, and you can't ignore the Medicare
right.
Premium.
Yeah, and along that line, I wanted to underscore, just because it works here for Jack and Sadie doesn't mean it's going to work for Jack and Sadie's colleagues across the hallway. Everybody's, is very sensitive to all the details in the economy. And just because it works when they start at whatever age they are, 60 and 62, doesn't mean it's also going to work if they were 50 and 52. So that's why I said I'm not trying to create a rule of thumb here. I'm trying to make a case, and Larry is too, for testing your theories. This is a good time to point out kind of the value of this lifetime balance sheet. I'm almost on my 45 minutes, so just give me another couple minutes and I'll finish up here. So here's our base lifetime balance sheet, and here is the 403B lifetime balance sheet. Let's stare at the left-hand column for a moment as I toggle between the two. Base plan, 403. Base plan, nothing changed, 403. Now let's stare at the right-hand column, lifetime spending. I got to stop this. Bach is playing, telling me stop. So now, what's changing in the right-hand column? Nothing's changing except taxes. So in the base, we paid present value of taxes was $664,138. See it over here? Now watch what happens when I click the other, 651. So that's what's happening, is we're paying less in taxes. As Larry said, we also have to keep an eye on Medicare B premiums. In this case, they don't come into play. But we've seen that happen a lot, especially next week when we talk about Roth conversions, where we're bringing in a lot of income. Some of the advantage, maybe tax advantage, gets wiped out a little bit by higher B premiums that you kind of cross that threshold. So again, very, very helpful to have this. One more thing, I think I can get away with this. Go back to the base plan. I just want to show this phase setup. I'll do this very quickly. So I'm going to clone to the base plan. I'm going to go into Jack's earnings. I'm going to modify them, and I'm going to say 100,000 for 2 years through 62. And then I want to point out this add change in earnings. And I'm going to go 50,000 to retirement. And I'm going to preview this so you can see what it's doing. There we go. I'm going to go 100, 100, and then 50, 50, 50. And what's good for Jack is good for Sadie. So let's do that here too. 100,000 for 2 years. Add a change of earnings, 50,000 to retirement. We can also use this change of earnings for when you retire in the middle of the year. You know, you retire in March, or when's the end of the academic year, May. If you're not on a 12-month pay period, you know, I mean, if you are on that, it might make a difference. So save that, preview that. Okay, what's our intuition? Is this going to rate? No, this got to lower it, right? So the question is how much? So we're just going to run our phase against the base. And there we go. They have gone from 97 to 91. And when we compare the income here, there's their full income right here, 100, boom, 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 boom. We go to the phase, we go to income, see it there, 150, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. Okay, so obviously that changed taxes, that we didn't change their retirement contributions. You know, if we were being fussy, we might want to go back and say, wait a minute, if they're only going to make 50, maybe they don't want to. On the other hand, you would never want to walk away from a match. So that's not the point here. The point is seeing that you can create this kind of a plan. Also, remember, we are not optimizing Social Security. We didn't sell the vacation home. So this is not your final answer. It's just demonstrating how to model this phase, how easy it is to model this phase retirement. All right, so I'm going to stop there because I'm, 3 or 4 minutes past my 45. And I think we have time for a few questions. And next week, we're going to look at optimizing and solving for common issues, where I'll show you some other ways to deal with cash constraint. Remember, cash constraint is when you don't have enough liquidity to get you through a, say, up to age 70 when Social Security kicks in or something like that. So, okay, I'll stop, hand it over, back over to Kate with this.
Oh, thanks, Dan. That was great. Does anyone have any questions?
I'll ask a question. I'm sorry I missed the last half of last week. Maybe you covered it or what I just missed. Is there a place to put in, you have a column for special expenses. Is there a place for unexpected income, say, unlikely that you win the lottery, but maybe you'll have an inheritance?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's just the corollary to special expenses. It's called special receipts, and I actually did one of those the other day, where I gave him a $300. That's not much of a lottery winning, is it, Mark? But even with $300, MaxiFi is going to detect and change. I think it changed their discretionary spending by $7 a year every year of their life for the rest of their life. Now, if that was 300 or 3 million, the differences would be more dramatic. But no matter how trivial or how dramatic, you can enter, ancillary income, anything you might imagine, the sale of a boat or a cabin or a piece of land or a business, what have you. You could do anything. Again, as I keep saying, with MaxiFi, it's about engaging your imagination and not thinking, I mean, maybe there's some stuff it can't do, but pretty much all the common stuff you think about. How do we model this? There's a way, and special receipts and special expenses is one of the most useful tools in the program for that. Because remember, with these, we not only have the dollar amount we put in, but look, we can change the way that dollar amount gets taxed. If that's a lottery winning or an inheritance, maybe it's taxed differently, or maybe it's not taxed at all. If it's land, maybe it's taxed differently. You know, you see what I mean? Same thing with special expenses. When you enter those, it could be tax deductible, it could be excludable from HEI, or it could be taxed at that medical rate, or not tax related at all. So there's, you know, lots of kind of flexibility here. And those two items, that's why I didn't dismiss them the first time through like I did our on pensions and annuities, because I knew that I'd be using those. So other questions?
Oh, Dan, I set up my profile and my base plan and maximize base plan and all that. And the software is extremely powerful. I can see that, but everything hinges, it seems to me, everything hinges on me living to be 100. And I don't want to live to be 100. Okay, I'm looking into assisted suicide or something because I don't want to live to be 100. I want my discretionary spending to go up, and I know the way to do it is to cut off at 90 or 85 or something like that. But I can't see how I can do that.
Well,
and I understand all the reasoning, but I really don't want to live to be 100.
right. Larry will have something to say about this, but I've listened to Larry for 20 years. So I can almost tell you. I'll at least take a quick stab at it. What we're doing is we want a really safe plan. We want to plan for what is possible, not what is probable. You're not an insurance company, so you don't get to play the averages and spread your risk across multiple lives. You only have one life to live, and the worst case scenario is that whether you like it or not, you end up living to 100. So you don't want to live from now, get in your 80s, and have to worry about dying on time. Larry?
Well, even before Larry weighs in, though, if you really want to model it, Tim, you can change your expected death to 90.
Yeah,
I can do that, Hugh?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
sorry. That's a good point. See here, I'll show you. Can you see my screen, Tim?
Yes, I can.
I
Yep.
changed my default age here to 90.
Okay.
Yeah. But when you do that, you're going to introduce a little bit of longevity risk, depending on. I mean, if you go to 98, I don't know how much risk you're introducing. Maybe a slight amount. Only 1% of the people live to 100. But you know, we're trying to do these certainty equivalent models, and we're trying to say, we want you to look at your model and say, we've removed longevity risk and we've removed return rate risk.
Okay.
And it's, you know,
Yeah.
But let me pop in here. So what economics says to do, Tim, is actually not to reduce your maximum age of life. It says to go to that standard of living index and tell the program that you'd like your age living standard profile to decline starting, let's say maybe between 80 and 100, you have a decline 0.5% a year or 1% a year. That's under settings and assumptions. So this is what economics says, is you don't assume that you can't make it to 100 because you can. Rather, what you do is if you're not super risk averse, you take a risk that you are going to die earlier than, let's say, not, and you start and you say, okay, I'm going to take that risk by spending more when I'm younger, knowing that if I do make it, I'll spend less when I'm older.
Okay. That takes care of my issues. Thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to ask a question. This is Dave Carboni. Is it okay?
Yeah.
By the way, Tim is an alumnus of my class. I'm surprised because we always talk about, good to see you. Because I like to remind people he may feel differently at 89 when he's tooling around. And also there's 92,000 people over 100 today. So I don't know. I got a feeling Tim's going to grow over time in his views. But that's an aside. A couple of other questions I had. One was, one of the things you did, Dan, this is kind of a technical, mechanical thing. When you changed to the Roth IRA, I noticed the Roth 403B, I noticed you saved it twice. You saved
you didn't make both changes and then save it. You saved one after the other. Did I catch that correctly?
Yeah, I did. When you caught that, when I was here and I changed this one, when I was
Yeah.
practicing, I changed it. I removed something here and then I saved. And then I came over here and added this one and I saved that.
Okay.
I did that because when I was practicing this a couple of times, one of the times I was practicing, something went kind of funky on me and I didn't
Okay.
have time to kind of think, well, what happened there? What did I do? I might have just made a mistake, but I thought, I'm not going to take any risk in my presentation. I'm just going to
Gotcha.
save that and then save it again just to make sure that sucker gets saved.
Okay, because I was playing with it too, and I was wanting to make sure that I wasn't
Yeah.
doing it incorrectly. But you were just doing it.
The preview button is your friend.
Right.
If you hit that preview and what you see here is what you're going to get in the
Gotcha.
reports.
So this was kind of a belt and suspenders thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. The other thing is, I know Larry talked about taking taxes into consideration. When you sold that vacation home, did it take into account capital gains, or was that kind of built in as net proceeds?
It probably did.
We do ask for the basis. We ask you the purchase price. And
Yeah.
so we are
I didn't
calculating.
notice that, but I was, I could have missed it.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, actually it did. Here we are, Tim, or David.
Yeah.
So we got hit with a capital gain tax.
Oh, okay. Well, it was built in, baked in. I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. The other thing is a couple of other things, minor stuff. The housing, when you have maintenance, that didn't look like it was accommodated under the housing. It's really a special expense, isn't it?
Well,
Because
you could enter those as special expenses, but Larry has talked recently about here and housing. I didn't enter anything for maintenance and condo fees.
there you go.
That's just because I'm doing a strip
I
down.
didn't notice that. Okay. Oh, that was for the, but that's for the, that's your primary residence. You can do that. Okay.
Yeah, and I think you can do that on the.
You can do it for the
you
can do it for the vacation home. You can do it for the two. You can change the house. You can change both houses twice.
Beautiful.
And by the way, we take into account the $500,000 exemption on the capital gains.
On the primary.
Right.
And we take into account the fact that well, I think we're assuming indexation of that number. I think that is indexed. Things that the tax law is indexing, we certainly index. Things that, like the Social Security thresholds beyond which your Social Security benefits, the modified adjusted gross income thresholds beyond which your Social Security benefits are taxable, they're purposefully not indexed for inflation. So the program knows that under the hood. But other things that are not kind of stuck in law that we think are eventually going to be indexed, we tend to maybe keep even for a couple of years, not adjust them, but then at some point after a couple of years, let them rise with inflation. And so I have to go back and see how we're dealing with a $500,000 number.
I don't think that's indexed. I'm almost sure it's not, but that's okay. I hear you.
Okay, so we may, I don't actually make the call on that. Our tax engineer, Mike O'Connor, does. So, and I think I'll see what I just forget exactly how we're doing that.
By the way, thank you very much, Dan. I just was so impressed by how you presented it. It was really helpful. And thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else have some questions?
Dan,
Steve has one.
go ahead, Steve.
Just basic. If I create several scenarios and don't come back to them for a while, I can imagine I might lose track of what the difference is in the assumptions. Is there an easy way to compare
Well,
what the difference is in
yes
the
and no, Stephen. If you click on family, you get your list here, and they're easy to delete. But let's go to 2 year early, and I have these little flags, and so the flag indicates there's some change there.
Okay.
But it doesn't say exactly what the change is. And what's sometimes frustrating is you'll get a flag under settings and assumptions. When I go there, wow, look at all the possible settings and assumptions I could have changed. And so a lot of times, honestly, I think retire 2 years early, I can do that in 60 seconds. I'm going to delete that sucker and rebuild it so I know exactly what I'm doing.
Also, Steve, your question is suggesting what we need to do, and we'll do it right away, is to allow people to put notes in about each of these profiles. And that's something we've been talking about doing, so we'll do that. And yeah, one last thing I wanted to say is that we have inside these some of these input screens, we have facility for very easily doing, for example, Roth conversions over a number of years for prepaying your mortgage. So there are inputs here that go beyond, like, here's a Roth conversion input. You just say, okay, I want to convert 20,000 a year for so many years, and is that going to help or not? So you can pretty quickly, by using that, see when it makes sense and to Roth convert, and by how much. Because if you overdo it, you could actually raise your taxes. If you're doing the wrong years, you could raise your taxes. Very sensitive to your particular circumstances. But anyway, that's I like the prepayment of the mortgage too, because that's one of the safest investments around these days, which is paying off your mortgage when the safe rates that you can earn are so low, and everything else.
What was your question, Kate?
Oh, thanks, Dan. I was wondering if we could enter our contributions to 403B partially on pre-tax and partially to Roth. A lot of people do that.
Yeah. Yes. So
I missed that.
Yeah. So if we're doing this one, I did the whole thing. And I was kind of rushing through it a little bit, but I took the whole 6,000 and moved it out of this panel, which is the one, and put it into this. But I could have just as easily left the contributions here at 3,000, not 30,000, 3,000, and then in the other panel, put 3,000 into the Roth.
Got it. That's great. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Dan, one other thing, when you do make changes in an alternative, you end up with the button that says restore to default.
Yeah.
Sort of a hint of at least which boxes you've played with.
Right. Yeah. In fact, it'll say base included. So this is in the base, but it's modified. It says modified, and I could restore from the base by clicking that. It says, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And there it is. I'm back to my 7K again. And so I'd have to remember to delete this one or not, maybe I'm allowed to do both, so.
It's just an easy way to see which things you played around with.
Right. I'm a fan of, I'm actually a fan of deleting alt profiles. To me, they get stale. I forgot my hypothesis I was testing. They just become clutter to me. And maybe I just like the practice of rebuilding them, but there's something about building it fresh, being confident of exactly what I changed, and not relying on something I did a week ago, Lord, 3 weeks ago, because sometimes I forgot why I even did something. I'll look at an alt profile and think, what in the heck was that for? So I like to delete my clutter. And the other thing is, if these alt profiles are worth anything to us, they should get added to the base. So if I create this alt profile here for Social Security at 70, and I know that's what I want to do, what's it doing sitting out here as an alt? Go, let me show you this. I clicked too fast, but there's a button in the alt profile that's pretty cool. So I'm going to run this against the base, And this happens to be one where I manually set Social Security at 70. And I think, oh, wow, look at that. I definitely want to keep that. So if I scroll down here, look, I can just apply that to the base plan. Boom. And now my base plan is the same as Social Security at 70. If I were to run those against one another, they'd be exactly the same. When I go into my household Social Security now, there it is. Everything's set just like the 71. So, you know, you want to fold in those alt profiles back into your base if there are things you want to keep going forward and become part of your new plan. You know, your base plan should continue to evolve as you think of more clever things or change your mind about something. And once you've decided, oh, that early retirement, or keep working 3 more years, and make that your base, and then move from there.
So let me make a couple maybe final comments here. There's some other features, like after you run a report, you can budget your annual discretionary spending allowance, what we say, what the program suggests that you spend on a discretionary basis. You can budget it using something called the progress tracker, which you click on. Maybe Dan, you could at least maybe just run one of the cases and point to where the program progress tracker is. And then you have an opportunity down here by clicking to do a budgeting of the discretionary spending. So that lets you, here's where you get to see, well, how much have you spend these different categories, and are you overspending? So lots of stuff in there that we'll take you through in a future webinar. But the other general point takeaway is that it's impossible for anybody to have optimized things perfectly before they sit down to use this program. And there's no risk. None of the things that we've talked about here really involve any risk taking. It's all in the language of finance, seeking alpha, finding alpha, which is kind of riskless return. This is a riskless return endeavor. Now the program, the premium version of the program does handle risk analysis, but we've been focused on the basic version of MaxiFi.
Dan, thanks for a great presentation. I think that you've certainly demonstrated that there's a lot of opportunity for people to test their hypotheses and compare one alternative to another. And retirement planning is an iterative process. So thank you all for dialing in, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Larry. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Guys, good to see you.